You're listening to Swift News, your daily news briefing in just 10 minutes. This is episode 64, and it's July 6, 2025. Let's get into today's stories. We're doing a deep dive today, looking at the big picture from the latest global news. Our mission, really simple. Cut through the noise, find those key insights, maybe some surprising facts, and get you properly informed on what's happening worldwide, all without the overwhelm.
Exactly. It's about more than just headlines, right? It's connecting the dots. Politics, global affairs, tech, the environment, even those really compelling human stories. We want to help you see how it all fits together.
Okay, so let's start with some of those big global shifts. Geopolitics, it feels like cooperation and conflict are, well, playing out everywhere at once. Where are you seeing the most significant action?
Well, one place you absolutely have to look is the 17th BRICS summit down in Rio. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa.
Right.
And Prime Minister Modi was really quite vocal, pushing hard for more trade, more security cooperation within that group.
Yeah.
It's more than just economics. It feels like a deliberate move, positioning India in this emerging multipolar world. It sort of challenges the usual Western-led economic structures. We could be seeing the beginnings of a parallel system here.
A parallel system, that's a big thought. And thinking about a nation's standing. South Korea, there's escalating political tension there.
Yeah, pretty serious stuff. Prosecutors are actually seeking to detain the former President Yoon over corruption allegations.
Wow.
Yeah.
How significant is that beyond just South Korea itself?
Oh, it's huge. When a former leader faces that kind of charge, it shakes public trust, destabilizes things internally.
Sure.
And for a country like South Korea, so key in global tech and regional stability, internal turmoil, well, it sends ripples outwards. It definitely puts a spotlight on governance, on accountability.
Okay, so from internal instability to maybe a flicker of hope for peace, Gaza, what's happening with the ceasefire talks?
There's some movement.
Yeah.
Israel sent negotiators to Qatar. They're talking about a 60-day truce. The main goal, at least initially, is aid for about 250,000 residents.
60 days. What could that realistically achieve?
Well, critically, it's a window for humanitarian aid for essentials to get through. But beyond that, it's breathing space, maybe a chance to de-escalate, perhaps even lead to more serious talks down the line. It's fragile, but potentially important for building a little trust.
Fragile indeed. But elsewhere, security concerns remain high. The Red Sea attack off Yemen's Hodeidah port, small vessels firing on a ship. Why should someone listening, maybe far away, pay attention to that?
Because the Red Sea is basically a highway for global shipping, especially between Asia and Europe. Any disruption there, attacks, blockades, anything, it messes with supply chains.
Right.
It means ships take longer routes, costs go up, and eventually you see that reflected in the price of goods.
Yeah.
It just shows how interconnected everything is. A local conflict can hit your wallet.
It really does. And closer to home, maybe seemingly smaller scale, Bihar's election commission working on voter rolls. Sounds administrative, but why does it matter?
It's fundamental, really.
Yeah.
Fair and accurate voter rolls are about democratic legitimacy. If people trust the election process, it strengthens the whole system, reduces potential conflict. It seems like detail work, but it's a cornerstone.
So all these things, global summits, local elections, security incidents, they really do weave together, affecting trade, relations, stability.
Absolutely. Impacts our daily lives more than we might think.
Okay, let's pivot then. The global economy, we're seeing, well, a bit of a mixed bag, right? Growth, but also some definite challenges popping up. What's standing out to you?
Well, in India, the Nifty 50 index climbed, up 0.7% to 25,750, mostly driven by IT stocks, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It shows confidence there.
I sense a but.
Yeah, there's a but.
Yeah.
Looming regulations from SEBI, that's the Securities and Exchange Board of India, specifically around short selling and derivatives. That could shake things up a bit, introduce some volatility. So if you're invested in that market, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Maybe think about portfolio adjustments.
Good point. And it's not just India seeing market rises. The U.S. NASDAQ hit 20,700 after the holiday. Tech seems strong there, too. But globally, oil prices are ticking up. How does that factor in?
Rising oil is like a hidden tax on everything. Transportation, manufacturing, even food costs go up.
Right.
For trade, it means higher shipping costs, squeezing businesses. It can definitely put a damper on economic activity, potentially fuel inflation, even on the otherwise strong markets. It's a big one to watch.
Okay, but on the stability front, India's GST collections, the goods and services tax, held steady, around 1.87 lakh crore in June. What does that steadiness tell us?
It's a good sign. Shows economic activity is pretty consistent, and tax collection is effective. It gives the government predictable revenue for public spending, infrastructure, driving growth. Reflects decent consumption, too.
But internationally, trade frictions seem to be simmering. China putting restrictions on EU medical device imports. Over $6 million worth.
Yeah, that's significant. It's not just about those devices. It signals maybe a growing protectionist trend, possibly China, aiming for more self-sufficiency in key areas.
What does it mean for the EU side?
Well, they lose a market, obviously. Might need to rethink strategies. But bigger picture, it fuels worries about trade becoming more fragmented, maybe even leading to tit-for-tat measures. It could spread beyond just medical tech.
Okay. But it's not all negative on the global stage. Emerging economies. Nigeria's digital scene sounds like it's booming. $2 billion in investments for tech startups.
Yeah, Nigeria's tech sector is really dynamic. What's interesting is how much of it seems driven by very specific local needs, fintech solving payment issues, agri-tech for farming, e-commerce tailored to their market.
Oh, homegrown solutions.
Exactly. It's often necessity-driven innovation, which makes these startups quite resilient, and it's attracting serious global investment, proving you don't need to be in Silicon Valley to build successful tech. It's quite a counterpoint to some of the global headwinds.
So markets moving, trade policy shifting, regulations changing. It really paints a complex picture, doesn't it? Directly impacting investments and the whole economic outlook.
Absolutely. Lots of moving parts.
All right, let's shift again. This is always exciting, cutting-edge innovations. Tech, science breakthroughs, stuff that's genuinely shaping what comes next.
Yeah, and some fascinating stuff happening. Look at the data coming back from India's Axiom 4 space mission. Shubhanshu Shukla's experiments up on the ISS, that's pushing microgravity research forward.
Microgravity, what kind of applications could that have?
Potentially huge ones. Understanding how materials, biology, even medicines behave without gravity could revolutionize manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, maybe even fundamental physics down the road.
Yeah.
It's not just about space travel.
Interesting. And back on Earth, technology is having a very direct impact on saving lives. Japan using drones in, 80% of prefectures for disaster response?
Yeah, it's transformative. Drones give you eyes in the sky immediately in places that are dangerous or impossible to reach quickly after a disaster.
How exactly do they help find people?
They can scan large areas fast, spot survivors using thermal cameras sometimes, assess damage, find safe routes for rescue teams. It means getting help where it's needed much, much faster. A real game changer.
And speaking of predicting disasters, a U.S. startup using AI for hurricane forecasts. Improving accuracy. That sounds critical, especially with storms like Tropical Storm Chantal approaching the Carolinas.
It is critical. Traditional models are good, but AI can analyze massive amounts of historical data weather patterns. Satellite images finding subtle correlations maybe humans or older models miss.
So better predictions, more lead time.
Exactly. Faster, potentially more accurate tracking and intensity forecasts, and even a few extra hours of warning can make a huge difference for communities preparing for a storm like Chantal. It's about safety, minimizing damage.
And AI isn't just for disasters. South Korea's AI healthcare platform impacting 800,000 patients with diagnostics. That's massive scale.
It really is. The AI analyzes medical images, patient records, looking for subtle signs of disease, often much faster or earlier than might otherwise happen.
So, better diagnoses, earlier treatment.
Potentially, yes. And it helps make advanced diagnostics more accessible, especially if there's a shortage of specialists. It's a big boost for public health capacity.
Looking even further ahead, Japan testing 6G, 190 gigabits per second. What does that even mean?
It's hard to even wrap your head around. 190 GBPs, that's practically zero lag. Think real-time holographic calls where it feels like the person's right there.
Wow.
Fully autonomous systems communicating instantly, cars, infrastructure, remote surgery with perfect feedback.
Wow.
Truly immersive VR. It's the backbone for the next wave of smart cities, advanced AI. It's the infrastructure for a different kind of digital world, aiming for rollout around 2030.
Incredible. So these aren't just cool ideas. They're hitting health, safety, how we connect. Really fundamental stuff.
Definitely, the impact is becoming very tangible.
Okay, let's switch gears again. Sports and culture, things that bring people together, create those shared moments.
Yeah, and a great example just wrapped up the Neeraj Chopra Classic in Bengaluru. Chopra, India's javelin star. He's more than just an athlete, isn't he?
Seems like it. An inspiration.
Totally. His success, his discipline, it's inspiring a whole generation of young athletes in India. Really elevates India's profile in global athletics. He's a genuine role model.
And sticking with Indian sport, cricket. Smriti Mandhana ranked num. 3 in T20I, and India swept the T20 series against England. That feels like a statement.
It absolutely is. Shows the depth of talent, especially in the women's game. Victories like that build momentum, national pride, and encourage more girls to play. India is really becoming a force in women's cricket, too.
And not just cricket making headlines. Tennis. Yuki Bombry reaching the Wimbledon men's doubles semis.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Performing well at Wimbledon gets noticed. It raises the profile of tennis in India, highlights individual excellence, and hopefully spurs more interest and investment in the sport there.
And looking globally. Brazil's women's soccer team winning a World Cup qualifier. Kenya's men's volleyball team gearing up for the African Championships. These aren't just games, are they?
Not at all. They're moments of national focus, pride. Brazil's win continues their incredible soccer legacy. Kenya's volleyball team shows the rise of African nations in team sports, its culture, identity, aspiration, all playing out on the field.
And that connects nicely to the cultural side, too. Bollywood India's Houseful 5 hitting 400 crore. That's huge.
Massive number. Shows the enduring star power of someone like Akshay Kumar and the incredible reach of Bollywood. It's a cultural and economic force, domestically and for the diaspora.
And that cultural reach is global now, isn't it? An Afrobeats festival in Toronto drawing 120,000 people. That's amazing.
It really is. Shows how music like Afrobeats travels, finds huge international audiences. Then you've got a London exhibit on sustainable design getting global attention.
Right, showing a shift in values, perhaps.
Exactly. And Japan's anime industry reporting $5 billion in global revenue.
Yeah.
Anime's gone from niche to this massive mainstream cultural force.
So music, design, animation, they're like universal languages now.
Yeah, increasingly so.
Yeah.
They create shared experiences, shape trends across the world, connecting people in new ways.
Okay, finally, let's touch on something tougher but also inspiring. Environmental challenges and human resilience. The hard realities, but also the response.
Yeah, the realities can be truly devastating. The floods in central Texas, 43 lives lost, including 15 children, and those 27 girls missing from a camp. It's just heartbreaking.
A brutal reminder of climate impact.
Absolutely. And we're seeing similar tragedies in India. The cloudburst in Uttarkashi, 28 lives lost, monsoon rains continuing, Kerala's floods displacing 350,000 people, red alerts out. The scale is immense.
It feels overwhelming sometimes.
It does, but
Yeah.
it's vital to also see the other side, the efforts towards solutions and sustainability. Look at Canada's solar farms powering over 2 million homes now, cutting emissions significantly.
That's progress on a large scale.
It is. Or Brazil's Amazon reforestation, hitting 12 million trees planted just this year. These huge projects offer some balance, some hope. They represent real commitment.
And then there are the individual stories, which are often incredibly powerful.
Exactly. That Kenyan engineer
Yeah.
developed a solar-powered water purifier, now helping 11,000 rural households get clean water.
Amazing.
Or the teacher in India whose digital literacy program has reached 9,000 students in Rajasthan, opening up worlds for them.
Bringing vital skills.
Right. Or the Brazilian doctor with a mobile clinic serving 8,000 people in remote Amazon areas. Basic healthcare where there was none. And the U.S. scientist creating flood-resistant infrastructure that's already helping 7,000 Texans cope with the kind of floods we just talked about.
So it's that contrast, isn't it? The massive challenge, but also these incredibly powerful, often very local, human-driven solutions.
Precisely. It's grassroots ingenuity, compassion, making a real difference on the ground. It shows that even facing huge global issues, innovation and commitment to helping others really do make an impact. It's about seeing both the urgency and the capacity for positive change.
And that brings our deep dive for today to a close. We've really spanned the globe: politics, economics, tech breakthroughs, cultural moments, environmental realities, and that human spirit, all pulled from today's news flow.
Yeah, and as we finish, maybe a thought to leave with you, the listener. We see these huge challenges, climate disasters, geopolitical friction, but then we also see this quiet, consistent work by individuals and communities, building water purifiers, teaching digital skills. How much does that kind of work actually shape our future? Is that where the real foundational progress happens, even if it doesn't always make the headlines?
That's a really powerful question to reflect on. We hope this conversation encourages you to keep looking for those connections, stay curious, and stay informed about this complex, fascinating world we share.